following program is available in high definition on Channel 700. This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of TV Cogeco.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Council Matters. This is a show where we consider topics of interest to Oakville residents, first with a group of Oakville residents on the topic, and then with a group of members of the Council of the Town of Oakville to respond and react. And today what we're talking about is the Urban Forest Management Plan and the overall goal we've adopted back in 2007 to reach a tree canopy goal for our town of 40% by the 2057 year of our 200th anniversary as a town. We chose that because it seemed like a special legacy date, and we knew that it would take a long time to get from 28 or 29% to 40%. And thank you very much for joining us today. With me is Celia Roberts, who is a past Vice President of the President of the Ontario Horticultural Society and a recent past President of the Oakville Horticultural Society. Am I right?
Yes.
I was worried I'd get that wrong. Your group did the Anderson Parquet, right?
We did. Yes, we did.
And which is a marvel.
Thank you.
And I take every chance I can to thank you for that.
Thank you. And so does the neighborhood, the people in the West River Association.
Excellent. And we also have Liz Benneian, who's the manager of programs for Oakvillegreen.
Yes.
And Shaniah Leduc, who is a leader of the 14 Mile Creek Residents Association, and that is for geographic location purposes the northwest part of Oakville, the middle northwest part of Oakville, right?
Yes.
And thank you very much for coming. I know that, Shaniah, you've described your interest in the topic. I mean, you've lived here many years, but you've said that you have fresh eyes because you've only recently decided that you wanted to pay more attention to this. What's your take on how we're doing in this area? Were you surprised to discover that we had the goal? Do you think it's too ambitious? What's your first reaction when you learned all this?
Well, to the point around ambition, you can only be bigger and better if you have big goals. And if you have a mediocre goal, you'll only end up with mediocre results. So I actually absolutely applaud the ambitious goal, and it forces all stakeholders to actually come together to work towards that goal and actually achieve it. And I love that it's associated with the 200-year anniversary for the town. I think that's a phenomenal milestone that I really truly think we can achieve. I think on the resident side of things, I actually live in a neighborhood where literally my house is the boundary of, on the right side has no trees with a street, and on the left side has a massive ecosystem full of forests. So there's a disconnect there that not only is visually impactful to the negative, but also I think has a massive opportunity for adding to the tree canopy in that respect. So overall, I'm glad that I was able to finally come to understand the issue and applaud that we are moving forward and have done so in the last 5 years and are reevaluating how we can even do that better.
Super. Liz, you're intimately and personally involved in the fact that to reach that goal, we have to plant thousands of trees every year, and you and your group have certainly planted your share, beyond your share of them. How is it going?
It's going great. I founded Groundbreakers in 2004, and that group has planted almost 16,000 native trees and shrubs around Oakville. So I see people are engaged, I see people are interested, and we use the tree planting program as a great way to educate people so they understand more about trees, know the value of native trees, and know how to plant trees and care for them properly. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lot more work to do in those areas. I'm still surprised by how poorly many trees are planted around the community. And I'm really appreciative of the town and everything the town is doing in terms of educating people about tree planting, and also in the higher standards that you're demanding of tree planting on your own public property. So I'm also pleased when I go to conferences on urban forests and conferences basically of just about any kind of thing to do with the environment, and Oakville is being held up as a leader in that regard. So I'm proud to have been a part of some of that, and proud of the community of Oakville for the way it's, the Council of Oakville, for the way it's met some of these challenges. The 40% goal is ambitious. It's not, it's entirely possible to achieve, though. And I think what it's going to require is more than just an engagement on the council's part and on the staff's part. It's going to involve a community engagement. And I would especially like to see engagement from the business and commercial community. I know that when the urban forest study was done, the area that had the least amount of trees in the community is the QEW corridor. And that's a commercial industrial area. And so I think if we could get those businesses involved, planting up that corridor, I think it would just achieve amazing results. It would bring us much closer to where we want to be in terms of total canopy cover, but it would offer innumerable benefits in terms of improved air quality. When you have a highway running through your city, that's a lot of pollution that's coming into the community. And planting up that area would really, I think, significantly impact air quality in Oakville.
I've been very pleased as mayor the way one of our newer business citizens, Siemens, they brought their Canadian headquarters to Canada, and they last year organized a big tree planting, not in that corridor granted, but up in Glenorchy, because we have a goal of replanting Glenorchy, and they really worked hard. Siemens is clearly a very hard-working organization, and they're about to do it again, organizing another one. Celia, your society, the Horticultural Society, I have known one of your colleagues for 20 years, and I appreciate your group as, I think of you as a vast repository of knowledge about horticulture generally. What you did on Anderson Parkett is a beautiful example of what you can do. What is your society got to say about our goal and our canopy?
Well, I can speak for myself directly about that, and then to some degree about our society. We are enthused about the goal for 40% canopy. I myself think it's not aggressive enough. I'd like to see much more. I feel very passionate about trees. I'm concerned about what we have lost, even physically right now, what we lost with the ice storm and what we're losing with emerald ash borer. But what effect it will have when the trees start to leaf out in the spring, and how much more we may see has been damaged by that. The Society and the Ontario Horticultural Association as a whole has a tree program that communities can request a tree be donated and planted in conjunction with the community that they live in. So we're all aware that trees provide so much benefit to all of us on a personal level and as a community in the whole.
Yeah. My dad, we moved a lot when I was a kid, and every time we moved to a new place, I'm one of 5 kids. He would always plant 5 trees, one for each of us. And it was just this weird ceremony where symbolizing putting down roots everywhere we moved. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so I've always done that with my kids. But I really take you up on the spirit of, is 40% aggressive enough? Mm-hmm. When we were seeking a target, I was looking around for some kind of authority I could cite as saying that, you know, the number we chose was the right number. And we fastened on this 40% because the University of Toronto Forestry Department was recommending it as a measure of where you reach tree health, urban forest health was 40%. And listening to your remark about why couldn't it be more, I don't have a good answer. I mean, sitting here, I was thinking, gee, I wish I'd made it 50%, you know. But and you know what? Targets are targets. They can be reset. There's a famous story in business where a president of a business set a target for a vice president, and she achieved it early, and so he raised it on her, and she overachieved that, and eventually the board of directors made her the president. So I guess there's nothing stopping us from trying to go further.
Exactly.
Mayor Burton, if you don't mind if I add a comment to your experience of having, every place where you've lived, you've planted roots. I think that you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the effect that children and the education that children actually have in this situation. And there are school trips that take people or take school children to other parts of the world, and one of the key days that they have is actually reforestation and planting a tree as part of their travel experience. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could actually include in the school curriculum here in Oakville, in our own town, that education link, and have our children, our students, actually be able to also contribute to setting their roots in Oakville and be part of planting trees program and linking that to their scientific curriculum in school as well. It's just a thought to carry on.
Liz works with the schools. I think it's a thrilling idea. Every child plant a tree. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, and you've had a lot of experience working with them, so do you think there'd be a...
Well, we've had some good response with the schools in terms of tree planting. We've worked with several schools in creating outdoor classrooms and naturalized spaces. Of course, the issue is always, how can you find enough places to plant all these trees? So that's something where we have to work together. They can't all be planted on school grounds. They can't all be planted on backyards. So we have to work together as a community to kind of outline where we need these trees, where we have room for them, and get people engaged in that. But I think there's lots of opportunities in the schools. The public education programs that we have partnered with the town of Oakville to deliver have been very, very popular. More than 28,000 students have been through an environmental education program based on the Ontario Science curriculum, and it grows more popular every day. So I think that's been terrific, and the response has been overwhelmingly positive to that. I think there's, I was struck when in a previous show, you were talking about how when the town staff engaged with citizens who were talking about taking trees down, and they gave them some information and some advice, how people actually ended up planting more trees than they took down. And I think that I agree with what you said earlier. Education is the key. And I think a lot of people would plant more if they understood the benefits and if they knew how. I'm struck when I'm working out there in the community doing tree planting, how few people actually have done that before. They don't really know how to plant a tree. They don't know what they should do in terms of mulch. They don't know what they should do in terms of watering, and especially the native versus non-native. So when I tell people that if you plant a white oak tree, it supports almost 500 species, whereas if you planted something like a Norway maple, it supports 2. If you plant forsythia, beautiful spring shrub, doesn't support a single native creature. Whereas if you plant serviceberry, it supports dozens of native wildlife. So just giving people some basic knowledge, and when people hear that, they go, oh, I just planted a Norway maple, I didn't know. If people just knew. And planting a white oak, for instance, supporting 500 species, all the little larvae that are eating the leaves are feeding our songbirds. So there's a whole web of life that gets supported just by planting the right thing. So it's not only a matter of planting trees, it's a matter of planting the right things.
Well, Celia, go ahead.
Sorry. I think some of the education process starts with collaborating with the nurseries and the garden centers.
I agree.
To make sure that people are buying the right tree for the right space. And I have a neighbor who cut down 4 great big Austrian pines, and these were massive 20 or 30 foot wide canopies on a 50-foot lot. And of course they suffered from diplodia, and half of them died and had to come down anyway. But then she covered her back garden, not a garden any longer, really a pool and a patio area with permeable stone, but now it's probably 10 or 15 degrees hotter in there in the summertime than it would be had trees been planted as well. So I think it's critical that residents know which tree to plant, which have the benefits that Liz just alluded to, and then which is the right one for a small garden, urban, suburban plot or lot. I think all the trees that are coming down in many spaces or privately on private gardens are because they were the wrong tree in the wrong place.
We need, I think, to amp up the education side of this, and I'm confident that we'll be able to. Oakvillegreen's already done a lot of good groundwork in this area. Really, the Horticultural Society as well. We ought to be able to put that information on the town's website and to assist people more. And I want to thank you for the contributions that you've made to this conversation today. And
thank you.
We'll be right back with 3 members of council to look deeper into the topic of chasing Oakville's goal of a 40% tree cover by 2057. Welcome back. I'm joined now by 3 members of Oakville's council. Councillor Allan Elgar, who with me also sits on the regional council of the region of Halton and represents the northwest part of Oakville, Ward 4 if you know us by the numbers. And Marc Grant, who's a town councillor for the north central part of Oakville, Ward 5 if you're working by the numbers. And Max Kahn, who represents the northeast part of Oakville, Ward 6, as a town councillor. And thanks very much for joining us today. I guess I would be remiss if I didn't first make a correction to a mistake I made in the first panel. Celia Roberts, I promoted her to a past president. She's a past board member of the Ontario Horticultural Society, and she wanted me to be sure to put that correction in. So there you go. We've got the record straight now. When we look at our 40% goal, I thought Celia had a very interesting idea, which was why not raise, I don't know that she said we ought to raise the target, but she implicitly did when she said why wasn't it higher. You want to talk among ourselves here about where the target is? You want to raise it? You want to leave it where it is? Max?
Actually, Your Worship, I think one of the most important things is that when we're speaking to residents, I mean, the councillors and the people that are entrenched in the issue are quite aware of what a tree canopy means. But there's a lot of residents out there that don't understand what we mean when we say there's a 40% tree canopy. So given this, your initiative, I'd ask that you explain that first.
Okay. Well, help me out with this if I fail to make this clear. When you take a satellite, I'm going to explain it this way. When you take a satellite shot of Oakville in spring or summer, what you see is a whole lot of trees in some places and a whole lot of cement in other places. And we are almost 139 square kilometers. That's our geography. So if you count up how much of our geography has tree canopy, that is leafy plants showing to the sky, you get 28–29% approximately. We had the University of Toronto forestry folks help us 8 years ago to map and measure that. And it's not a precise absolute science, but we concluded that we were in the vicinity of 28–29%. And talking to them, I'm a target setter, and I always have been in life, and I wanted to know what was, 29% is 28–29% is very good in the GTA. I don't think anybody is as good as us. But I wanted to know what's best. What could we aspire to? And they said that their definition of urban forest health is 40%. And so I asked you guys to adopt 40% as the. I mean, that's all. It's really. I didn't have much more to it than that. That's where I pulled the number from. There was an authority we could cite that said 40% is a good number, and I went with that. I guess I actually thought some people would not want to set a target higher than we were, and so I wanted an authority, a citation for it. And a totally different way to have done it was shown to me just now by Celia, who there is an aspirational approach to life where you just go, no, I want to be 50, 60, whatever, and you just pick a number. So with all that we're struggling with, the emerald ash tree borer cutting into our canopy, the threat of the Asian longhorn beetle coming along behind, the damage from the ice storm, and our struggles to get developers and private homeowners to cooperate with us in growing the tree cover. I don't know if we want to change the target up from 40, but I think it's an interesting idea, and I wondered if I was to ask you to do it, or would you be game, or would one of you be interested? I mean, what's your sense of how far to go? Alan?
Well,
you're an ambitious guy. Let's hear you.
Okay, I really, really admire the challenge that she has put to us to try to increase it over 40%, but I really think what we have to do is make sure we do our data gathering at minimum every 5 years to see if we are even going in the right direction. Because what we've learned over the last 5 years, we've lost another 1% of our urban tree canopy for various reasons, and I think first of all we have to start trending the correct way to start even moving forward to 30, then to 40, and then why not 50? Because the trees are the lungs of the earth.
So when we hit 40, and of course we'll all be here, we'll reset to higher.
Absolutely, we have to. That's not even a stretch goal. I think we have to do it because trees. If you're around trees, it reduces the stress level. They've got scientifically proven things on the health issue for young children with ADD that it really helps reduce ADD, attention deficit disorder in children. If you're part of nature, then you're a better person. I do believe.
Well, I haven't run into very many people who would fight with that. Marc, what's your sense of the goal we set?
I think it's good. I'm a very big fan of the whole, pointing at the rafters, Babe Ruth thing, and swinging the bat and going for it. I think that 40% is a good goal for us to stay with, not do 30% and then see if we can move forward. But what we really need to do is work on how we're going to achieve that 40%. And I think the previous panel, and you brought it up very wisely, that we do need to get a lot of buy-in from people. We need to incentivize a lot of the even architects and builders and private homeowners who are rebuilding their homes to show them that, having a tree is not just good for the environment, but show them the financial benefits too. I mean, homes with trees, a lot of business parks with trees can sell for higher or rent for higher because they have that beauty to them. And as soon as we can find these incentives, and as soon as we can get that buy-in from all the little groups on the side that really aren't bought in now, I think we can start looking above 40.
Well, one of the things I love about our council is we don't just set targets, we actually put muscle and money to them, and we're determined to reach those targets. I'm convinced that we're making progress and I believe that you have to struggle on all fronts. I'll tell you, if you want, I'll tell you a funny story. I was invited to an urban forestry conference. I didn't even know urban foresters had conferences. I got there, and the urban foresters from the other cities in Ontario were all there, and they treated me, because I'm from Oakville, like some kind of rock star because of our urban forestry management program and our target and our tree planting. And there was a whole bunch of them around me, and they're going, you have to come to our town and make our town do it too. And this is what I said to them. I said, I can't do that. In fact, I'm only the instrument of our town's love of trees. You have to awaken that desire. The love of trees is bred in the bone in the people of Oakville, I believe. And I think we merely seek to satisfy that desire in them. Like, do you feel that we're way out ahead of our residents, or do you feel like we're right with them?
Politicians are never ahead of the residents. It's a proven fact. The residents are always in front of politicians, and I think we really have to listen. And it's trees and it's green space. And I'd like to applaud you for an email I received this morning saying you will save 100% of the green space of the Merton lands, everything. So that's, to me, that's a leader who is doing the right thing for what the residents want.
Well, the path I'm going to show that I've set out for us to do that is a hard path. It requires a lot of work, and it's time-consuming. It's not easy. I'm confident that we can win if everyone will follow my leadership on this.
We will win. You've got a council that will support that 100%. I'm sure of that.
Right, outstanding.
I'd agree, because as much as the public is ahead of the politicians, we are still the caretakers, and as the caretakers, the onus is on us to make sure that we do follow through with these important plans that we have, to save the Merton lands, to make sure that Glenorchy is provided for properly, and it's very important that we keep ourselves in tune with the public on all these issues as we go forward, because again, we are the caretakers.
One of the things about tree planting, whether it's a lollipop or a 20-footer that you tree spade, Councillor Elgar has proven, and Council unanimously has adopted the science that he brought to us on this. He's proven that if you have the proper soil, 30 cubic meters of good quality soil, the tree really flourishes. And we've seen actual evidence of that around the province where we've gone to look. So when we do it right, we get much better results than when we do it wrong. There was a time when developers would plant little tiny sticks, and we used to call them lollipop trees, and they'd die. And now we know why, because they were basically being planted in clay, so compacted it might as well have been concrete. Yeah. Right, guys?
Absolutely.
I just want to comment on the 40% canopy and whether or not we should raise it. I think that we have to, and I agree, we could have set it at 50 or 60, but we have to have achievable goals. And then you have a goal that you can measure against and how you're doing. We sit at a very respectable 28, 29%. But if we're, like Alan said, that we've lost 1%. And it's expected that because of EAB, we'll lose another 10%, 180,000 trees. So it's important that we have achievable goals, because you'll have a lot more buy-in from the residents. Once we achieve that goal, then clearly we're going to want to move forward and become more progressive.
So we'll always remain open to keeping our sights on the horizon and to raise our gaze to a higher target.
And just on the point that these two gentlemen raised, I do appreciate...
We've got about 15 seconds.
I appreciate your leadership on the Merton lands.
Well, thank you. It's going to be tough, but I think we've proven over the years that Oakville's a resilient, tough, and smart community. I thank you for joining us today. This is a program that tries to show how council matters.